I did receive, Adam, I did receive the endorsement of the AFL-CIO, and I'm grateful for that. Means a lot.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
All right, folks, you are here with the Valley Labor Report. My name is Adam Keller, and I am here with one of Alabama's State House candidates, Steve Hubbard. And I really appreciate Steve joining us today. I appreciate all of you who are listening to the Valley Labor Report. We are Alabama's only union talk radio program. And we have had a series of candidate interviews for the 2022 elections. We're talking to candidates from across the state and asking what they have to say to working class people of Alabama. So, Steve, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So when we start out, I just want to know if you could introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background. And I know there's at least one thing we have in common. We're both former educators. So you could tell us a little bit more about your background and who you are.
Well, I'm Steve Hubbard. I am a retired English instructor. I've taught for more than 30 years at Learning B. Wallace Community College in Andalusia. I am originally from Bibb County, the Centerville Brent area. I have an undergrad degree in English from the University of Montevallo. I did my master's at Alabama and got the job at Learning B. Wallace Community College, or junior college then, 1984. Later went back to university and completed doctoral work, a PhD in English again at the University of Alabama. And I taught at the community college until 2017 when I retired. I have been involved, particularly since retirement, in Democratic politics, though I have been a Democrat virtually all of my adult life. I made a slip or two a few times, only once at the presidential level, but I have changed my ways and have not done that again. I believe the Democratic Party is the party for working men and women, teachers, but also factory workers, skilled laborers, craftsmen, theater workers like you work with, Adam. I think we are the party of average people. I think we have been, forever really. I'm not sure that when it all boils down to it that really the Republican Party of today is a whole lot different, say, from the Republican Party of the 1920s and 1930s. For the bosses, for the big shots, big financial big shots, but not so much for the working man and woman. So I am a lifelong Democrat, and since retirement, I have worked a good bit in Democratic politics. I am the secretary of the Covington County Democratic Party. My wife is the former chair of the Covington County Democratic Party. We worked on Doug Jones's campaign locally both times, and then we worked. I was treasurer for a local guy who ran for county commission in 2020. And so there was an open seat in the legislature, and for this particular seat, the fellow who was the representative ran for state senate, and it just looked like the right time to me. There are great needs in our country as well, and I saw a need to try to help bring some balance to the Alabama legislature. I think this one-party rule is not really healthy for Alabama, or for that matter, for the country.
Well,
so that's a start.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you filling us in. You have quite the extensive career in education, which, obviously is something that I can relate to as a former educator myself and former educator advocate. And, especially you teaching at the junior college level, you were with working class families. Those were the folks that you were working with. And and it sounds like you've been pretty involved in Alabama politics, especially these last several years. You've volunteered for
I
campaigns.
have. Yes, I have been a member of the State Democratic Executive Committee. I'm not right now. I did not run for a term this time since I'm running for this particular office. But I have been a member of the State Democratic Executive Committee.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. So appreciate you filling us in on your background. And before we get any further into more about what you're running on, could you tell us about your district? Which state house district are you running in, and where is that located?
This is House District 92. It's in South Central Alabama. It includes all of Covington County. I'm in Andalusia, the county seat of Covington County. It also includes a good swath of eastern Escambia County. The largest town in Escambia County that's in my district is East Bruton. The district does not include Bruton per se. And in Coffee County, just a rather narrow sliver of the western part includes the town of Kinston and then a few smaller places. It's a very rural area.
Right. Yeah, I was just going to ask if you would call it a very rural area. So South Central Alabama there, Coffee, Covington, and Escambia counties are covered in your district. So Steve, tell us about your platform. What are you running on? What are some of your priorities as a candidate?
Well, my priorities have to do with making some changes that I think would be good for everybody, but particularly those on those we would call working class folks. I am in favor of removing the sales tax on groceries. That's the state's 4% sales tax on groceries. And I realize that money would come out of the Education Trust Fund. If we were just going to leave it at that and deprive the Education Trust Fund, I would not be in favor of it. But there is bipartisan legislation I think in each house of the legislature that would remove the state sales tax and replace it by capping the amount of deduction that's allowed in the state form for federal income tax. It would be $4,000 limit for individuals and $8,000 limit for couples. I would support that. I know Alabama Arise has done extensive work on this, and they certainly advocate for it. I'm a member of Alabama Arise, and we're talking about probably 2 weeks worth of groceries that sales tax amounts to each year. And when I heard that, I read that, I was kind of startled that it was that much. Maybe we're just talking about $5 or $10 a week on a trip to the grocery store, but still, with food prices having gone up, it would feel better to be paying a little bit less, and removing that sales tax would help along that line. That's one priority. Another high priority for me is expanding Medicaid. The governor, as I understand it, could do this with a stroke of a pen. So far, she has not done this. She has been encouraged mightily. Lots of groups, I think, including Arise, have tried to persuade her to do that. But, I think, maybe legislative action needs to be taken. We need to expand Medicaid for a number of reasons. There are close to 300,000 Alabamians who are either uninsured or underinsured that we know about. Many of these people are low-wage workers. They're part-time workers. We could expand Medicaid and cover them. Expanding Medicaid would create tens of thousands of jobs over the next 5-6 years, at least according to a report issued by the Public Affairs Research Council of Alabama and a business research group based at Jacksonville State. And, we're talking, say, 20,000 new jobs a year. I think that's what Parker estimates. You divide 20,000 by Alabama's 67 counties. I think that's about 197, 198 jobs per county. You know, I don't expect a rural place like Covington County to get 197 jobs a year, but if we got 40 jobs a year, and I realize Montgomery, Birmingham, Huntsville will get, you know, a lot more, that's fine. But if we got 40 jobs a year over the next 5-6 years, that would be a tremendous economic boom in this place. And I'd like to see that happen. Yeah, and I think one other argument for expanding Medicaid is, you know, really, we're already paying for it, or at least helping pay for it, because we pay federal taxes. And, you know, you've got, I think, about 39 or 40, maybe 30, may just be 38, but I think it may be 39 or 40 of 50 states plus District of Columbia have expanded it. And we ought to do that too. It just makes economic sense as well as humanitarian sense. It's the right thing to do. Voting rights are very important to me. I have been disturbed by, I was disturbed during the Trump presidency about attacks on democracy, attacks on verifiable truth, it seemed to me. And I was certainly disturbed by the attempts to challenge the 2020 election. Not so much the challenging in court. I mean, that was perfectly legal to do that, but you know, the continued denial by the former president and by so many people, even at the state level, you know, for whatever reason. I feel like a lot of people know better. A lot of people in office know better, but they're playing along. And that's really disturbing. I think democracy depends on truth. And so I would want to be a voice not for curtailing the right to vote, which is what we see, I think, in some states, you know, particularly those states that want to say, well, the legislature can have final say as to whether this vote counts. But rather, we should be expanding the right to vote, making it easier to vote. You know, we should have, for example, we should have weekend voting, the weekend before election day. We should have, as we had during the pandemic, no excuse absentee voting. These are things that we need to do to increase participation in our democracy, not curtail it. So that's a big issue with me.
Absolutely.
I would say those are the top three for me. You know, what's your next question? And but I've left out here.
Well, no, I think that was great in terms of your top three priorities: Medicaid expansion and looking at expanding voting rights and removing that state sales grocery tax. Those are all things that we've discussed on the show. And I'm also a fellow member of Alabama Rise, and you're right that it's just such a no-brainer.
It is.
Really, all three of those. But, you know, when it comes to Medicaid expansion, I know that for rural areas such as your district, it
right.
could be a game changer.
It really could. It really could. And you know, to me, it makes sense for small businesses as well. I'm sure there are many small businesses you know, that probably can't afford to offer health insurance, and they're not required by law, I don't believe, unless they have, 50 employees? Right.
And it's only for, you know, employees who are working a certain amount of hours per week, I believe at least 30 hours per week. Right. So there's a lot of workers who are caught in that gap.
Right.
And right, if you're a small business owner and some of your workers could get Medicaid so that they're covered with health insurance, right? That only helps you. That's
right. And ideally, you know, these workers will move into positions where they're making enough money, they will qualify to be on the exchanges, and they can buy health insurance through the exchanges, or they will move into employment that does provide affordable health care, you know, ideally. I certainly would advocate some much needed long overdue, in my opinion, changes to the minimum wage. We need a higher minimum wage. I wish the federal government would do it so that it would apply nationwide, so that the minimum wage would be a living wage. But some states have done it, and it would be a good thing if Alabama did it. Birmingham tried to do it, but because we have as I understand it, because we have a state constitution that concentrates so much power in Montgomery rather than in local areas, these counties and municipalities don't have the power to do that.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up because I was, one of many people involved in Raise the Wage campaigns back during that time. And it was yet another example of the state legislature intervening. These are folks who talk about small government, but when cities and counties do something they don't like, suddenly big government's okay. And
that's right.
I think what you're describing in terms of the minimum wage in Alabama, we are essentially subsidizing the low wages of employers like Walmart and Amazon and others,
right.
because these companies that are paying sub-living wages, those workers are having to turn to Medicaid and to food stamps and to other social services, and so it's just a question of how do we want to move forward in a way where working class people can afford to have a decent life.
Yeah. I grew up in a working class family. My father had an 8th grade education. Now, he was born over 100 years ago. He was born in 1908. He was a bright man. He read every day. We took the Birmingham Post-Herald, paper that doesn't exist anymore, but great paper, and he read it every day. And my mother did have a high school education and some business college education. And I had teachers in my family on both sides of the house. But again, working class who very much valued an education. And in my father's case, it was often, he was an electrician and he did really good work. He was an electrician for a lumber company in Centerville for many, many years, from the 40s until well into the 1970s. Although the company changed hands, he stayed there. And there were times when there was, struggle. My mother particularly felt like he ought to be making more, and just employers were reluctant. And they give him a little bit every now and then, but he supplemented his income by doing electrical work outside his regular job. When he'd get off from work, he'd maybe work on wiring the house, or he'd put in some extra plugs or whatever folks needed. He was quite popular.
They call that these days.
That's right. That's what it would be. And we did okay. We never did without, but I understand. I think rather viscerally what it means to be working class, and and despite what some people may say, college instructors, or at least English instructors, we put in a good bit. We put in a good bit of work too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And whether you're white collar or blue collar or something in between, if you have to go to work and report to somebody else and sell your labor for a living,
that's right.
Then you're working class. And I think it's important that we can, build solidarity across some of those divisions, so that English instructors and coal miners are working together for common interests. And I think
that's right.
That's right. Priorities such as expanding Medicaid and making it easier to vote and raising minimum wages, those are issues that I think should resonate with folks, a broad spectrum of folks.
That's right. I think we need to look too at bringing in jobs of the future. They're really not so much the future now. They're here. The future is, in a sense, the future is now. I know that's who's that sound like? Is it Toffler from Alvin Toffler, maybe from the 1970s or so, Future Shock. I'm dating myself here. The state needs to be taking the leading by example for climate smart policies and green jobs. We need to be recruiting green jobs. These are jobs that wouldn't necessarily require a college degree. It might require some technical training. Some of them would, I'm sure, require a college degree. But we need to be doing this throughout the state. We've got a lot of sunshine in Alabama. We have, so far, still abundant water, thank goodness. And I think we need to be moving in that direction. We need to be moving towards, for example, at the state level, we need to be transitioning, in my opinion, the state fleet to more and more electric vehicles. And we need to be making electric charging stations available all up and down the interstate and elsewhere as well. And I think that would also mean jobs as well. To have more electric vehicles and more charging stations. I heard today on the news that this was, I think, from Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm, Secretary of Energy. She's in the President's cabinet. She was announcing that car batteries, to run electric vehicles are going to be made. More are going to be made in this country. And, I'd like to see that in Alabama, preferably in my district, but really anywhere. I'd love to see, us moving more and more towards renewable energy to power our homes and our businesses. Again, we have plenty of sunlight. We have a good bit of wind, especially in the Gulf of Mexico, where I think we could generate a good deal of electricity through turbines. So I really think we need to be moving in those directions and looking for jobs, to bring in jobs that meet the needs of the green economy.
Right. I think that's important what you brought up, because we talk about climate change and protecting the environment, usually like in a national context, and what's the president going to do, what's Congress going to do.
Right.
But there is a lot that we can do at the state level. And there's a lot that could be done through state legislation, whether it's, inside the state's property and resources, like the state fleet that you mentioned,
right,
or economic development that is geared in a way that is pro-worker and pro-environment.
Right. And ideally, these jobs would be union jobs. I would love for that to be the case. Recently, the Congress also passed and the President signed the CHIPS Act to bring back, or to try to bring back semiconductor production in this country. That sort of thing may be more suited to your part of the state, where there's so many technical people in the Huntsville area. But, I suspect there are folks down this way. We could attract such jobs. I think that'd be a great thing. Absolutely.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit about your opponent. Is there anything and I know you're running a positive campaign, so, I'm not trying to get divisive, but was there anything you wanted to draw out in terms of your contrast with your opponent or your opponent's party, in terms of what you stand for and how you're campaigning and maybe who's supporting you?
Well, I have not heard his position on any policies. I have not. So, I'm assuming that he would pretty much follow his party's line. Basically, whatever the bosses in Montgomery say, he would do. And I do know that a large amount of his money, and it is a large amount, it's tens of thousands of dollars, a large amount of that's come from business interest and from PACs. There have been some individuals, but a large amount from PACs and business interest. So far, no PACs have contributed to my campaign. I'm not saying I would reject all of it, but it's all been individuals for me.
Right. So you're running, grassroots, small dollar donations. You don't have the big wealthy interests that are backing your campaign. So, you got to scrap to get some attention and to be able to make an impact in your district.
I did receive the endorsement of the AFL-CIO, and I'm grateful for that. Means a lot.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that. This being a labor radio show, the AFL-CIO's endorsement does carry some weight.
Yes.
And I think that's a testament to you running on a worker first agenda for your district and for the state. I wanted to ask you, if people are interested, how could they support your campaign? How could they get involved? What are some ways people could help you out?
My website has an option for volunteer. It also has my phone number. They can call me or they can email me. My website, also my Facebook page, actually both my personal Facebook and my campaign Facebook page have donate links that will take you through Act Blue. People can also donate by check, payable to the committee to elect Steve Hubbard, and mail to the committee at P.O. Box 1035, Andalusia, Alabama, 36420. So all of those are options. My campaign will be at the Covington County Fair next week. We have a table, and I will be there every day. It'll be Monday through Saturday. Probably won't be there all the time, but I'd love for folks to come out. I'm doing some canvassing. Folks may see me around. Hope they do. And so those are ways to get in touch with me also.
Absolutely. So was there anything that we didn't talk about today that you wanted to make sure we discussed, or that you want to make sure you mentioned?
Since I have spent the better part of my life in public education, I would like to say that I am very much a supporter of public education. I will never do anything that I believe is going to harm public education. Certainly in favor of the step increase system that has been put in place for K-12 teachers. I'd like to see that for higher ed as well in the public colleges and universities, or something comparable to it. I support teachers. Their right to teach. I don't think they should have to, particularly in the upper grades and in college, I don't think they should have to water down what they're teaching. Some of our history is not pretty, and it should be the truth. And it's just, some of our history is not really grand and glorious. I wish it were, but much of it is, but not all of it. So I would certainly support teachers' freedom to teach. Let me mention also state workers. We would not function nearly as well as we do as a state without state workers. And I spoke recently with folks in our local mental health department, and they're not officially state workers, though I think some are in the state retirement system. What they do, what the folks at DHR do, what the folks in our courthouses do, they are absolutely essential. And I think we need to compensate them fairly and make sure that their compensation is on a par with what they would be making in other southeastern states. So I would do what I could to advocate for them as well.
I'm glad you brought up both educators and the state employees, because you are a retiree. You're a member of the retirement systems of Alabama. Mm-hmm, so, and based on our conversation today and based on that fact, I think it'd be fair to say we can count on you to defend our defined benefit pension plan and, the integrity of the retirement system.
Yes. Yes, and I'm glad you used that term, defined pension benefit. We don't need to go to a system where we've lost the defined pension benefit. We don't need this, one of these systems that's totally dependent on the stock market, or, what is it?
I know there's been talks, in years past about a 401k and.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to think of. I could think of 401, but I couldn't think of the letter of the alphabet. Yeah, I don't think, that's fine. It seems to me as a supplement, but, as a guaranteed retirement for folks who often, spent 25 or 30 years or more working in a state-related occupation, they need that defined pension.
Absolutely. It's a part of the benefits package, it's part of the compensation package. Most folks who go to work for public school systems or the state, they're not making much money. They're typically making, especially those who are college educated, are often making less than their private industry counterparts. But as part of the deal there is that they can retire with dignity and know the day they retire how much their benefit's going to be. So I think it's important that we have people in the legislature who are going to champion those retirees, fight to improve their benefits, as possible, but certainly to defend the integrity of the system and defeat any attempts to funnel money out of the retirement system or change that defined benefit.
Yes, I totally agree.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for your time and certainly for your service in education all those years, stomping out ignorance. We certainly appreciate it. And thank you.
I'll tell you what, if I had a few students that you probably would remind me of, and those were the really good students. Those are the students I remember, the really good students. And I'm sure if you had been my student, I would have remembered you well.
Well, I appreciate that. And there's something about being an educator and seeing that light bulb go off in a student's head. And there's just nothing quite like that. And I think educators are uniquely positioned to serve as candidates because you organize things every day. You deal with chaos every day.
That's true.
And you deal with diverse people every day and moving them towards common goals. So Steve, thank you for your service in education. Thank you for being willing to step up as a political candidate. And thank you for spending some time with the Valley Labor Report today.
Thank you so much for having me, Adam. I truly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.